Five of the victims in the same case going to the same lawyer to sue Sandusky and Penn State. Isn't that a coincidence that they have 5 guys, the same guy coaching all of them? Because that's what a defense lawyer is going to bring out.
Well, it's not a coincidence. You have that guy that put out this little advertisement or advertisement that he's going to handle this particular
But that
type
goes
of
to
case,
motive, because if you can be enriched from this man's conviction, it goes to the motive to lie.
The motive after the fact that they've already testified at the grand jury level at the presentment. So
we
it's a little
saw that
different.
during the Michael Jackson case. In fact, a lot of people are talking about the comparisons between the two. We're going to do that as well. We're also going to talk about the interview that we referred to earlier with Bob Costas. We're going to get your opinion on that. And we want to know what you think about the possibility that the defense in this case could actually prove Jerry Sandusky is being wrongly accused, perhaps even innocent. Tell us what you think about that. Go ahead and email me during this break. It's lynn@lynndoyle.net. Welcome back, everyone. Our topic is the Commonwealth versus Sandusky. Reaction to this scandal and to the questions that we've asked on our social media site has been swift and strong. We're going to share some of them with you right now. Conrad has written and said the typical liberal media needs a sensational person and story to make headlines. If they would tell the story properly, aside from hanging Sandusky, they should also be hanging McQueary and his father. That's in reference to the assistant coach who allegedly saw a rape of a 10-year-old boy in 2002. Joe says tragic events such as this yield valuable lessons learned. Morality, responsibility, many lessons learned for our children, our parents, and the general public. It is so sad. I would have taken immediate action for the sake of the defenseless child if it were me. Again, referring to that incident in the shower. And Jamie says it is clear that Mr. Sandusky is guilty based on the fact that he admits to showering and touching these young children in the shower in the same sentence in his phone interview. We're going to talk about that phone interview in just a moment. If you want to tell us what you think about this case, though, you can email me at lynn@lynndoyle.net. Before we go to the Bob Costas interview, which from a media perspective and as a journalist for more than 35 years, I thought this is the biggest coup that a journalist could get. What's the overall reaction here with our best legal minds in the country to the lawyer giving the permission for that interview?
His lawyer should do 1 of the 10 years he's going to get.
Crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, I agree with that assessment, although at the time I thought that it was ripe for some sort of a defense statement. I think he should have had a publicist, or he should have had a lawyer. He should have begun to try to move public opinion, if he could, to help him out. But using him personally was
the problem.
Was a complete
the problem
disaster.
Was using him.
Can the prosecution actually take his words
Absolutely.
from the interview and use that against him?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now,
Absolutely.
in his defense, the defense attorney explained that Jerry wanted to speak. He had been wanting to talk about this since all of these allegations had been made, and he wanted to clarify on some
well,
points.
clients want to do a lot of things, but that's why you're the
He
lawyer.
didn't do a good job.
They can't speak.
The lawyer introduced him.
But, but the lawyer did that. By him coming on camera and saying, my client wants to speak, I advised him not to. He wants to address these allegations, these false allegations. To the end of that, he would have addressed that. He could have dealt with that issue. By using the statement of the accused at this time himself, it's a bad move.
All right, we're going to actually hear from the accused right now, because we talk about this interview, this Bob Costas questioning of Jerry Sandusky. So now we're going to let you hear it once again and then tell us what you think.
Mr. Sandusky, there's a 40-count indictment. The grand jury report contains specific detail. There are multiple accusers, multiple eyewitnesses to various aspects of the abuse. A reasonable person says where there's this much smoke, there must be plenty of fire. What do you say?
I say that I am innocent of those charges.
Innocent, completely innocent, and falsely accused in every aspect?
Well, I could say that, I have done some of those things. I have horsed around with kids. I have showered after workouts. I have hugged them, and I have touched their leg without intent of sexual contact.
Without intent of sexual contact. Could he argue, hey, by admitting that, yes, I've horsed around, I'm acknowledging that perhaps I crossed the line, but I didn't commit rape or molestation. Has he helped his case at all?
I don't think so. It's possible in the minds of 1 juror out of 12, which is all you need. that they may perceive him to be honest, that he's coming forward, and that's always a possibility, but it's not worth the risk.
The statement was lawyered because the law is that not only touching an individual, but you're touching him for sexual gratification.
Sexual gratification.
So if he's indicating that I did touch the leg or I did this, it wasn't for sexual gratification, and you would have to know that by understanding the law, then it's clear to me that he's indicating that I haven't broken the law. I may have done something that may have been viewed as inappropriate.
But one of the problems is you may have a victim that has not come forward that may be so incensed by that interview. You know what?
But
if this guy might get away with this, I'm going to come forward.
And that's happened, right?
I think it actually happened. And what Tariq's saying about the use of the legal terms, if I'm prosecuting this case, I'm going to say in closing, the judge is going to tell you, and he's going to use various buzzwords, just so happens that Sandusky's using the same buzzwords on here. I mean, obviously it was a rehearsed effort to try to sway public opinion in favor of him. This was a disastrous thing for him. And then later on, remember, the Costas asks, are you a pedophile? And you get this long explanation. You know, I had a major murder case where the critical question was asked of the killer, did you kill her? Long pause before he said no. That was used against him as a tacit admission. That's a tacit admission.
All right,
and he doesn't have the voice of an innocent man. He's not fighting.
Yeah, that was a disastrous thing to do.
Let's compare this case, as I mentioned earlier, to Michael Jackson, because a lot of you have been on this show when we covered that trial. He was acquitted of the molestation charges. He admitted in the interview with Martin Bashir, yes, I've slept in the same bed. That interview was used in the prosecution's case against him, and yet he walked away from those charges.
There's distinctions, though.
Is there a comparison, or is there similarities between those two?
The distinction is that one of the cogs in the machine that pushed that innocent or that acquittal to happen with Michael Jackson was the fact that people tried to extort him. In other words, she tried to get money from him. The parent tried to get money from him.
Well, didn't Chuck just point out?
But that wasn't prior to.
Who pointed out five attorneys?
Michael Jackson's
five victims
was prior. Michael Jackson's was prior to any indictment, any going to the police officer, anything like that.
In other words, if you pay me, I won't report you. That was what happened to Michael Jackson.
In Michael Jackson, it was one set of facts from one, victim, really. This is all different sets of facts from different victims, different families, different witnesses. The amount of evidence against him could never be combated by him getting up there and speaking his mind before he knew all the facts.
But if you have 8 victims, 10 victims, and one is demonstrated to the jury to be completely lying, a juror could very well say, you know what, if they coached him, they could have coached everybody. I'm voting for acquittal.
Well, and this is also
the age. I got confidence in people with regard to that. I think that people can say, as it relates to this particular child, not guilty, as it relates to other individuals, it's not.
You're talking about one case is what you were saying. You're talking about it's California, which is not central Pennsylvania, which is another thing. And the third thing is everybody knows Michael Jackson was a weird guy. I mean, weird guys do weird stuff. I mean, this is a little bit different.
Was a weird guy.
All right, this is the age of where everyone watches CSI and we know what forensics are, and of course we lived through the O.J. Simpson trial and saw what role DNA played. Tell me, or lack thereof, tell me about the lack of physical evidence, the fact that there's not DNA that can be presented by the prosecution, that there's no smoking blue dress that we we saw at the end.
That's what makes the case triable.
Right. So does that help?
That's the other
Sandusky.
That's the other side of it.
90% of child molestation cases, you don't have scientific evidence. 90% of it.
More than that, even, I would say.
99%.
Yeah.
What you do have is what Bruce started out with when he says it's going to be a battle of oaths. It's going to be a battle of credibility. It's going to be individuals testifying and you being able to discern whether or not that individual is telling the truth or not. And that's what this case is going to base itself upon. The advantage that the prosecution has with respect to this is to have many victims. So you're hearing the story all the time. Now, maybe the first one is lying, the second one is mistaken, and the third one's memory is lacking. But what's happening with the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th to the end of it?
And it's easy for the prosecutor to explain why you don't have forensic evidence when years go by before the reporting. I mean, obviously, no one went to go look for it.
Well, remember the daycare case out in California where all of those kids said that they had been sexually abused and subjected